Welcome to the Consultants Training Institute's Emerging Leaders series. I am Brian Jones, joined by TJ Liles-Tims, hailing from Oklahoma. Welcome, TJ.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to have you part of this series.
Glad to
You
be here.
have been, in the last year or two, contributing quite significantly to some major projects within NACVA related to the CVA training and a couple of other things, and we'll definitely get to talking about those. But before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you went to school, and how you found your path into business valuation and financial forensics.
Well, I started off at Cornell University and played football and baseball there. Unfortunately, got hurt, left, and went to basically, I've been all over. Left Cornell, went to a junior college. I was drafted out of high school to play baseball. Went to a junior college in Kansas, didn't get drafted again, so finished my undergraduate and master's degree at the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond, Oklahoma. At that time, I thought that I wanted to get my law degree and my MBA and be a corporate attorney. And so I was able to get a position as a file clerk at a corporate securities firm. And all of the attorneys that I talked to said, if you want to do corporate law, don't become an attorney. And so that's what kind of got me into looking more into originally investment banking. I worked for a private equity firm where we virtually loaned money off of the value of companies. And of course at this time was during the technology boom, and nobody knew what the businesses were worth. We had small mom and pops, we had large corporations, and we would basically, the private equity firm would go in and say, well, your business is worth X, and we'll structure a debt deal similar to this or this. And as I got more versed in valuation, I noticed that the businesses were worth more than what they were indicating.
Okay.
And so me being from small town Oklahoma, that did not set well with me. So I decided to break off on my own at that time. And I thought, there's a niche there that the small mom and pops did not know the value, and that there's an opportunity there for someone like myself to step in and say, well, here's truly what the value is. So take this to a PE firm or to a buyer or someone and have a certified report to say this is what the value is.
So right away in your career, early in your career, you determined that you wanted to be a bit of a maverick and take your own, find your own path. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced by taking that on? Most people, you would think, as a more senior professional, after some years in practice, would make that change. But
Right.
what are some of the challenges that you experienced?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge has been my age. The primary target in this industry are attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, are professionals who are experienced, who have been in the business for several years, and when they see a kid walk through the door, they immediately discredit you. And so it's been challenging to basically educate them that I am versed in what I do, that I do work hard, and that I'll work harder than anybody out there to make sure that I am doing a justice to the client and that I am doing the right thing. And so I would say that was the biggest challenge. And then another, I'd say probably the second challenge is just getting the information. And that's where NACVA has just been tremendous, is providing those sources of information. But as starting out, grouping all of that information together was a challenge. But those, by far, I would say, were the two biggest challenges.
You also are part of the 2014 40 Under 40 nominees, and we've been speaking to some of those folks. And it's interesting that you are chiming in on an issue that they've expressed has been challenging for them, and that is their age. That you know, you work hard, you've got great credentials, you've got good experience, but it's the age factor that is, you know, giving them that little bit of pushback. For those folks, if you who are more senior in the profession, or what would be something that you would like to see happen between the folks who are tenured in the profession and for those of you who are coming into the profession, some way to better collaborate or support you?
I think that it's just a matter of relying on the education that we're receiving, the certification education, the academia, to know that, you know, we are educated and that there is some cohesiveness from the standpoint of those that have come out of the academia, who have just graduated college. They do have a passion. You know, they want to make a name for themselves as well. And the tenured individuals understanding that, you know, hey, I can capitalize on that passion. And then vice versa is that those that have graduated understand that, you know, those that have been in the business and who are tenured and been 20 to 30 years in this business, you can learn, what you learn from them is invaluable. And so just the two groups of people understanding that, you know, we can feed off of each other, that this is a relatively new profession and that there is plenty of work out there, and to have the mentality that, you know, not to help each other because, you know, I want to stake my place in this industry, is just not conducive,
Right.
in my opinion. So being able to work together and understand that the two can learn from each other. I mean, the individuals such as Mel Abraham and Laurie Maston, I mean, I have sat back and watched them and just seeing what they present and watching them speak, and the seminars that they put on. I mean, they just provide a real world experience that is invaluable.
What are some of the areas that you specialize in and the engagements that you're involved with?
My practice is primarily litigation. I also do some estate and gift of operating entities, and then also transaction valuations. In the litigation arena, I would say that it's primarily valuation based.
Okay.
But I do also have the financial forensics, forensic accounting, and do some of that. But primarily, it's valuation based. And like I said, it would be estate, transaction, and litigation.
Within some of the projects that you're working on for the NACVA related to the CVA training, developing resources for those folks going through the self-study and even enhancing the curriculum for the live class, what are some things that you've learned through that process that maybe, having been through the certification process some years ago, that sort of has been refreshed for you?
I would mainly that since it is a relatively new profession, that everything is evolving, everything is changing, and the days of old when you could just pick it up at any point in time and do valuation work is just not there anymore. I mean, because it changes daily.
Right.
You have those tenured individuals who are establishing new methods, and those in academia who are challenging those methods, and just the continual evolution of whether it's different methods or different discounts. That has just been, over the last couple of years, skyrocketed.
So for folks coming into this profession, maybe recently credentialed, or maybe coming out of an MBA program with economics or finance or accounting MBA, what advice would you have for them?
I would say that to one, think long term. You know, where do you see yourself long term? Do you see yourself being in a big practice, in a big firm, and being a partner in that firm? Or do you see yourself being a solo practitioner? And think along those terms. And then once they've established that, then finding someone who took that same path, and maybe not modeling yourself after them, but look at what they've done. Talk to them, reach out to them. All of the tenured professionals here that are associated with NACVA that I've talked with are more than happy to take a call from you. And you know, if you just bend their ear for 30 minutes, I mean, they're more than willing to help. And so don't make the mistakes that they made, and they'll tell you that. They'll say, look, these are the mistakes I made, and don't make them.
Right.
So just latching on, you know, establish your long-term goal and latch on to someone who is already at that long-term goal and learn from what they've done.
When you're not conquering the world of valuation or financial forensics, you know, taking over the world, and what kind of things do you enjoy with you and your lovely, beautiful wife, Miss Macy?
Macy and I love to travel. So if we're not traveling together, I usually, it's seasonal. If it's fall or winter, I'm usually hunting or fishing. And if it's in the spring or summer, I'm playing golf. And that is something else that I would say is some advice is take that time. I had a mentor, Rob Schaff, who has his master's, the MAFF,
Right.
and he's the one that I've kind of modeled myself after.
Okay.
And he had said that, you know, there's a point in time when you must take vacations and you must take that time to refresh. And it's interesting, just before this interview, Mel Abraham said the same thing. He said every 90 days, he and his wife have a time that they'll, even if it's just a long weekend,
Right.
Just to give yourself that time to refresh. And that's not a bad thing.
No,
I
it's
mean, you've got to take that time.
Well, it's nice to have a balance in life, especially when you find a career that you love.
Right.
So when you're working, you don't feel like you're working. You're actually doing things you enjoy, and you're challenged and you're stimulated,
Right.
and you enjoy that. But you often find your balance can get skewed. You know, putting in 40 plus hours a week.
Right.
But to have that good balance in hunting and fishing kind of refreshes you to keep the enthusiasm for your work.
Right.
So what would be, if you could make one big sweeping change or to pioneer something in this profession, to make the name TJ Lyles be one that people would remember, certainly they will get to know you over the ways you're contributing, but what would be your mission in life, your not in life, but in this profession, to make a change?
I would say that just to be one that when a valuation issue comes up, whether it's dealing with a litigation issue, is that I am one to go to. We have several tenured people in NACVA now that when you think of a cost of capital issue, you think of a Shannon Pratt, you think of a Roger Grabowski.
Right.
When you think of estate and gift, you think of a Mel Abraham. When you think of litigation, you think of a Michael Kaplan. So just establishing that to where, you know, you stay current and you constantly speak about it, and you're constantly working and helping others, that my long-term goal is that if I have that kind of issue, TJ's the person to call.
So to continue to establish your credibility and become that iconic knowledge center for someone to look to in the future.
And while I will probably never reach the stage of those individuals that I mentioned, just being able to be thought of at that point.
I think it's possible. I really do. No, you're doing some incredible things to be involved in the curriculum development and updating and standard setting, and then ultimately teaching and pioneering. I think you've got a lot of opportunity before you. Congratulations on making
Thank
the
you.
40 under 40, and thank you for how you've contributed to the organization. We look forward to doing more.
All right,
Staying
thank you.
busy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, TJ.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time.